like 30,000 pounds worth of cash in a Sainsbury's carrier bag.
Oh, wow.
And then suddenly, all of the industry, all the agents and everybody, all the managers and all the people that were in the know were talking about, this woman's just tour managed for Motorhead. For one night only, that was it. But it went worldwide. That I vowed then and there that this would never happen to me again.
The power of the mind there, Kim.
Yeah.
Because you did that, but what amazing experiences you've had.
Yeah.
Because you did that. Because you could have got on the train on the way back.
I could have so
and
easily.
That your life would never have, you would never have had those experiences. That
Absolutely.
one decision.
Me being in the industry so long, I love to say to people now, yeah, I used to sleep under Lemmy.
Right, welcome to the Drake Michigan podcast. I've got my good old mate here, Kim Hawes. I've not seen you for a couple of years, Kim, but we go back a few years, don't we?
Just a few.
Just a few. Kim, you're going to love this show. Kim's got some great stories to tell you. Kim was one of 6 only female road managers in the world at the time, and she was fortunate to be the road manager for the amazing Motorhead.
But only for one night.
Only for one night.
One night only, as they say. And that came about because my career started in 1979, as you know.
Yeah.
And I was selling shirts.
Yeah.
You go to a gig and everybody used to merchandise. It was a huge thing, absolute huge thing. And so I was selling shirts to begin with. But we're going back so far that we're looking at us before we even were in the EU and came out of the EU. This was before any of that existed.
Yeah.
And every country in Europe had their own currency. So I did the shirt selling for a few years for Motorhead at the time I was doing it. And we happened to be on tour, and the tour manager came to me one day and he just gave me this huge carrier bag and it was full of receipts.
Right.
And he just said, Kim, I have no idea if this Corona is Italian, Swiss, named all these. He said, where the hell has this come from? And how much is it worth? Because at the moment I'm frazzled.
Right.
But because I've been selling T-shirts, I knew exactly where the coins came from, because everything was dealt with in cash at those days.
Yeah.
So, so you had these piles of money, and some of them looked quite similar too. So I separated it all for him. And from that, I suddenly became a tour accountant.
Oh, right, okay.
How did that happen? So I was then a tour accountant. So again, we were on tour and we were in Paris. And we were just coming to the end of a tour with Motorhead. And we'd had a day off, or 2 days off. And then this was the last day.
Yeah.
And it was just before Christmas. So suddenly the band are going, because they knew I carried the money.
Right, okay.
It was just, people gave it to me because it was easier for me to carry their money than guys walking around.
Okay.
You used to see tour managers in those days. They'd have the metal briefcase, and the handcuffs.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
They'd handcuff it to their wrist, and it was so open. It's like, I'm the guy with all the cash in the bag.
It's so obvious. Yeah.
So obvious. I'd walk around with us, and I don't know why they were always Sainsbury's carrier bags, but I think they were a bit thicker.
Right.
Sainsbury's carrier bag, and
full of cash.
I had like 30,000 pounds worth of cash in a Sainsbury's carrier bag.
Oh wow.
But nobody would look at me twice because I've been shopping. That's my shopping. So like I say, we were in Paris, and the band decided they wanted to do some late Christmas shopping. Like I said, 2 days to go, and they wanted all this money.
Right.
They were entitled to it, part of their money and part of their wages.
Yeah.
So I got a phone call from the manager that said, Kim, I need you to deal with this. We need, they all want £2,000 each. They want £1,000 in French francs and £1,000 in English sterling. Where am I going to get that from? It's a Saturday morning in Paris and the gig's tonight. Yeah, well, they want it by about 1:00. So I then go out and went through every bureau de change that you could think of.
Yeah.
And I'm transferring all this money into French francs, then out of French francs into sterling, and finally I find it, and I've got £6,000 worth there, 3 in one, 3 in the other. I have to now give it to the tour manager to sign, so he can sign it off to give it to them.
Yeah.
I knock on his door, no reply. Gave it a while, went to my room, rang him, no reply. Rang him again, no reply. Even the band then are going, where is he? Nobody knows. So then we got a bit panicky because, like I said, we'd had 2 days off. Something's happened to him. He's dead on the floor in his room. You know, he's collapsed. There's something. So we get the hotel to open the door, and he's gone.
Really?
He'd done a bunk.
No.
He'd basically, it was the first tour he'd done with Motorhead, and he just had enough.
How long had he been on tour with them?
About 6 weeks.
And that was it. And he did a run.
So he just, enough's enough. So he went home, and there was nothing there. So the manager then turned to me, I called him up, and I was just like, Douglas, what am I going to do? You know, that he's not here. And he said, well, look at it this way. The crew's already done their part.
Yeah.
And they were, Motorhead road crew were just the crew to be.
Yeah.
You know, everything ran like clockwork, no matter what happened.
Yeah.
You know, everything happened and on time. So you've no need to worry about that. The only thing is the settlement at night. Now, a settlement is when the promoter paid the band.
Okay.
That never happened till the band went on stage.
Right.
Because obviously they didn't want to give you the money. And in those days, like I said, it was in cash. So you went into a little room, you locked the door, and between you, you'd huddle on what went on. And then you'd agree on the amount to the contract or whatever, and you'd start counting it out to make sure they hadn't ripped you off.
Right, okay.
So that was what I had to do.
Right.
And then get that money back to the UK. So I did it. And then suddenly, all of the industry, all the agents and everybody, all the managers and all the people that were in the know were talking about, this woman's just tour managed for Motorhead. For one night only, that was it. But it went worldwide.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
Because of their name, because of their antics, you know.
Of course, yeah, they were, well...
Yeah.
Notoriety.
Spiral Tap had nothing on, you know, the movie had nothing on them. We used to go like, that's a joke compared to what we've got up to.
Yeah.
So, it was, and so it kind of went to that, and then I get phone calls from America saying, I believe you've tour managed for Motorhead. Can you come and tour manage for this band or this band?
Yeah.
And my career took off.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, so carry on, go on.
Well, I was there were 6 of us in the world. But if you look at it more carefully, there was actually only about 2 or 3 of us, or 2 as such, and we're both British, both Northerners.
Really?
And the other 4 were Americans. 2 were British, 4 were American. But the Americans were wives of the manager of the band.
I see. Okay, so they were already... involved.
They were already involved, but a lot of the time the manager would take the wages of the tour manager, take his wife on tour with the band and everybody else, and get paid just to do double the job, and you know, and then call their wives the tour manager because it was just a way of getting them on the payroll. You know, so literally there was 2 of us. One was Simply Red's tour manager,
right,
and then there was myself.
That's crazy. Yeah,
so like I say, I got loads of calls to go to America and tour manage bands over there.
So what year was that then?
I think it was 1989.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And
because they were pretty big then, though, weren't they? 89.
Well, they'd had Ace of Spades and everything was in the early 80s.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember Ace of Spades. I was a big Young Ones fan, and I remember Ace of Spades. We were playing Ace of Spades on the Young Ones, and that's how I came across that track. But,
yeah.
I mean, Lemmy's he's a god, isn't he? In the world of rock, the man's a god. So
it's amazing when I go and talk to anybody, you know, like age groups, especially students at universities, and they're talking about, you know, they want to get into the music industry or they're artists.
Yeah.
Because my passion at the moment is the fact that we've been so intense on saying to youngsters, go to university and you can become Ed Sheeran overnight. You can become Adele overnight.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. It is only for the very few. And it's luck. It's just being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But there are other careers in the music industry, and that's what I'm trying to push. I always wanted to be a singer in a rock band. Two major flaws. I can't sing.
It's not important these days, that, you know. It might have been in the 90s and the 80s.
But I was even in the choir at school, and I remember and I only did it to get out of maths class.
Yeah.
Because they used to rehearse when there was a big event coming up. It was always a Monday afternoon, last lesson, and that was when I was having maths. So I joined to get out of my maths class, and
well, I'd have done that.
Exactly. Who wouldn't? Yeah. And the music teacher actually said to me, she said, Kim, I'm really pleased you're here because we're short on numbers, but can you just mime? So that's how bad it was. Then I tried I tried to learn the guitar.
Right.
And I just, couldn't get that. So I was told to use a tambourine. So things were just not working.
But you had a passion for music at early age, though.
Passion. And my career actually lasted longer than most artists do nowadays. 40 years in the business. Can't knock. Elton John probably, people like rare, that, though. But it's so rare, rare.
It is rare. So what was the first thing when you were younger that sparked your interest in music and your love and passion for music? Then
I've always had it,
right?
But there's an interesting story that my mum told me about. My mum was working in a paper shop.
Okay.
When I was born, she used to do a shift in this paper shop, and basically it was. Times were different then.
Yeah.
I was a baby in my pram, sat outside the paper she could see me through the window, but you wouldn't do that nowadays.
No, that's what
that was the norm
then.
Yeah. So I'm sat outside, and this lady came and she was looking into the pram. So my mum was kind of keeping an eye on what was going on. And then she sort of thought, she's kind of like one of the old traveller type women that came into the paper shop.
All right.
And they used to buy one cigarette.
Oh, really?
In those days, you could buy one cigarette and a match together.
Oh, really?
So my mum's kind of gone into the counter, getting the cigarette out and the match, and had it ready for her to come in. She came into the shop. So my mum was like, is it a cigarette? Are you here to buy a cigarette? She went, no, I stopped because I wanted to tell you about your little girl. Right. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
She said, I want to tell you that she's going to be really big in the music industry, in music, not the music industry, because it wasn't. In music, she's going to be really big.
Right.
And my mum was she thought this was hilarious because nobody in our family was musical, not one person.
Yeah.
So the fact of that was completely like, this is not real.
Yeah.
And kind of laughed about it. And it was this standing joke.
Right, okay.
So that was my first thing. And then, like many youngsters, and I can't really remember how old I was, but I must have been quite young because I threw tantrums, like youngsters do. I was into the Osmond Brothers.
Oh, were you?
I was an Osmond fanatic.
My mum likes the Osmond.
Yeah. And Donny Osmond was
Osmond.
So
how old were you then?
I can't remember properly.
You weren't young, though.
Yeah, but I remember this is so significant because I wanted to go and see them. Right. And they were playing in Liverpool, I think, or Manchester. I can't even remember where it was. And I wanted to go, like I said, go see them. And my mum couldn't get tickets.
No.
My grandfather went, but he looked at the queue that people had been sleeping out all night and everything and just came home.
They were massive, weren't they, at the time?
They were huge. And I was absolutely devastated. I was so upset that I vowed then and there that this would never happen to me again.
The power of the mind there, Kim.
Yeah. So whoever I wanted to see in the future,
you were going to see
I was going to see them.
Yeah.
No matter what it took, I would see them. And so I think it's quite poignant, that, because it did stick with me for such a long time.
Well, it is, because you've set intention.
Yeah.
Which is powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
really powerful.
I'll have to tell you that later on in my career, I took an artist onto the Donny and Marie show.
Did you?
So I actually had an even better experience than seeing him.
Isn't that mad how your journey
shook
went
them
from
hand,
there?
shook his hand and said hello and had a conversation. So
wow,
that wouldn't have happened in Liverpool or Manchester, would it?
No. So you were a child then?
Yeah, I was a child. Bought my first single by Manfred Mann, 54321 it was.
Yeah.
You know, so I had all the albums, loved the Monkees.
Yeah, I love the Monkees. I went watching the Monkees.
Did you?
Yeah.
Loved all that.
Yeah.
And then as I grew older, we used to go to every single event we could.
Right.
And we used to, as soon as I started driving at 17, we used to go up to Lancaster University a lot.
Yeah.
And remember my first drive on the motorway was actually to go and see the Jam at Lancaster.
Nice. Nice.
See that again. I was naive too.
Yeah.
Very naive. Grew up in a small market gardening village, basically.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worldly wise to that extent, and we just went to this gig at Lancaster University to see the Jam, and then we were asked if we wanted to go and meet them.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So we ended up in their dressing room after the gig.
Are you a teenager at this point?
I'm 17 at this point.
17.
Yeah.
Right,
So
okay.
again, very naive, and just went into the dressing room, got some autographs, and left.
Yeah.
You know, so
is that all they wanted?
If they'd have wanted more, they didn't have time. Because I think we were so nervous as well.
Yeah.
The fact that we were in there, so it was just a case of, can we have your autograph? And thanks, bye.
Wow.
You know, because
that's massive at 17 though. When you're a big music fan as well, the opportunity to meet Paul Waller and the boys, it's a big thing there.
Yeah. Well, again, we went to the gig and we couldn't get near the front, and it was a flat floor, so we were right at the back.
Yeah.
So we couldn't see anything. So we were sat down on the floor.
Yeah.
And we were in a biggish space, all sat together. So that we were just asked then by one of the crew.
That's nice, that though.
So, well, nice in one, but I should imagine they wanted a lot more, but they didn't get it.
You got an autograph though.
We got an autograph, and got a tie. I've got a merchandising tie.
Oh, have you really?
That I've still got now, and I'm not parting with it.
No, you shouldn't.
No, so
that's pretty unique, isn't it? You're not gonna. Oh wow.
So that's basically my first one. Then my first concert, my very first concert was see Bowie.
You see, I've been looking forward to talking to you about Bowie because we've had conversations about Bowie over the years, and I'm a big fan of Bowie. Bowie was
unique.
I think is right. I've seen everyone. I think bar Led Zeppelin, I've seen everyone I wanted to see. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
And David Bowie, I saw I think 4 times. But he did a gig at Old Trafford Cricket Club. I think that was the first time I'd seen him. And no lie, I saw him at the Freddie Mercury tribute, so that was the first time I saw him. But at Old Trafford Cricket Club, he came out and did Life on Mars, but it was just the grand piano playing really slowly, and he came out. And I've never had, in all the years of watching artists and the love for the artists that I've never had this awe for someone, and I did then. It was like a jaw. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it was what
his
moment.
Stage presence was
just
incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
He was, but he was the actual first one I went to see. I think it was about, I can't remember if it was 11 or 13, but one of the two. And we were taken by a neighbour, and she had 5 children, and she just said she'd take us all. So I was included. And I remember we had to leave before the last, the last song, because we had to avoid the traffic, blah.
Yeah.
So we went and we were walking to the car park. We had to walk round by the stage door, and there was a limo with its engine running.
Really?
And David just came out after the show, got in the limo, and it was literally 2 feet in front of me.
Wow.
So I grabbed hold of the door handle, thinking it would stop and let me in. It just kept going, so I had to let go. But again, then I'm like, this is not going to happen to me again. Right? So I'm putting this all in my head all the time that, it's out there, I'm going for it.
This is the law of attraction works. So you're putting out you wanted to meet David Bowie.
Yeah, and I did.
Didn't you want to marry David Bowie?
No, I didn't want to marry David Bowie. It was Elvis Costello. It was Steve Naive out the Attractions I wanted to marry.
Is that who you wanted to marry?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you had a thing for Bowie though.
Oh, I did. He was a god in my eyes. You know, the thin white Duke on this tall platform, 10 feet tall, huge man, overpowering everybody, looking down on us all because his presence was so massive.
Yeah.
So and then I eventually got to meet him.
And you were slightly disappointed.
I was devastated. I was so devastated that I couldn't talk because I'd heard that he had come to see Motorhead in Zurich.
Right.
And this was all flying about between the crew and everything. He's backstage, he's whatever. And I'm like, really? So I went backstage and somebody said, yeah, he's in that room there. So I can't go in. I just can't do this. So I thought, I know. If I get Lemmy to introduce me, it's a lot better. Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Lemmy and I just said, Lemmy, please introduce me to David. So he was like, okay, come on, like with his usual gruff voice, you know, and his cigarette in one hand and his JD and Coke in another, and we go into the room where David was, and he was sat on this sofa,
right.
And it was quite a low sofa. And Lemmy just walked in and he just said, David, I would like to introduce you to somebody. So David stood up.
Yeah.
And put out his hand, and he went, and Lemmy went, David, this is Kim. Kim, this is David. And he shook my hand.
Yeah.
I was not concentrating on that handshake because I was more like, why can I see, and why are you at the same height as I am? This is wrong. I am 5'5" without any shoes on, and I'm the same height as you. This doesn't work. Why am I not lifting my hand up to you? Because you're huge.
That
your
persona's all gone
absolutely.
there, right?
And it just floored me. So I couldn't speak.
There is a misconception about his height, though, isn't there? And I've looked. I remember when we had this chat years ago, and I thought I'll have a look into this. And people think he's like 5'8" to 5'10" or 6 foot or something like that. And then you watch the Let's Dance video. And there's a clip where he's stood at the back where people are dancing around, and he's tiny.
Yeah.
He's absolutely tiny. I'm thinking he's the same size as me.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Well, if you even look closer, because when I first, when I was writing my book and putting this story in there, I thought, you know what? Maybe it was just me at the time. Maybe I'm not remembering this properly. So I'm looking at all these clips of him on stage, and he's always got heels on.
Yeah, of course.
Always.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, he was so small, and it just drained me because suddenly the person who I was my God and just perfect in every way.
Well, they say don't meet your heroes kind of thing.
Exactly.
It is strange, really, because, I mean, when you think about it, though, that presence that he's got, that's so big. I mean, forget the physical side of it. I mean, it's so big. You're going to have that kind of, that perception's there already, isn't it? It's set in mind. And if you're looking up at a stage anyway, and if he's got heels on, they're pretty big, aren't they, when you're looking up? Yeah. If you're right, especially near the front and you're looking up, they're looking pretty big.
Oh, and I was always near the front. Like, try to get to the front on anybody that I ever saw. So
what did you say to him?
Hello.
Is that it?
That was it. And he kind of went, hi, Kim, how are you? And I'm just like, fine.
Oh.
Because I was just like, and then I was like, I had to get away.
Did you?
You know, because
you were devastated.
I was just devastated. And I didn't want it to be like that.
No.
I wanted him to be...
You wanted him to be that God.
That God.
Huge...
Yeah, that huge tower of presence, and I didn't want it ruined.
Did it ruin your following of him after that as well? Did it stop you listening to him? Did it stop...
Yeah, it did actually, which I hadn't noticed.
Because it removes the perception.
Yeah. And so I missed out a few years of his career for that reason.
Yeah. It's strange how that can happen, isn't it?
It is. But... it also points out that all these rock stars and whoever they are only human.
Of course they are. Well,
No.
I'm not sure if David was fully human.
No, not quite, not quite. But like I say, it's just been amazing to meet all these different people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so let's backtrack then. So you ended up going on in a way of selling selling T-shirts for bands. That can't have just been straight onto Motorhead though. You must have worked your way up.
That was through a lie.
Oh, was it?
A complete and utter lie. It was January 1979.
Yeah.
And I had been lucky enough to just come back from America, where I've been on a school exchange trip.
Right.
But it wasn't really a school exchange trip. We'd already done that. I'd gone back for Christmas to see the same family.
Yeah.
And Elvis Costello was on TV.
Oh, brilliant.
Now, it was Saturday Night Live. Now, of course, everybody now knows Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Because there's things have changed since then. But in 1979, if you'd have said that to somebody in Preston, have you heard of Saturday Night Live? They'd have gone, what? No. Why? And so I had that under my belt because they were on TV, and we all sat down and watched them.
Right.
And basically they had been told that the song they wanted to sing, they couldn't sing because it was too political even for Saturday Night Live.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was radio.
Right.
And it's basically, it's the fact that it was all about commercialism, and you can't do that on American TV.
Right.
You can't go out and slag it on American TV. So they were told to play something else.
Okay.
And they just went to the usual clip, right? The band Elvis Costello and the Attractions, and they started playing this other song. And then suddenly he just stopped. Elvis Costello just said, stop. Now, stop. So the whole band stopped, and he went, let's play Radio.
Brilliant.
So they played it, and there was nothing anybody could do because it was Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So they let it on, and it's such a thing because, like I said, they were told not to, but they did.
Yeah.
So we were all talking about that in the family, and of course they were asking my views on, like, is that the only type of music you like? And this is quite different because America hadn't really seen anything like it before. So when I came back from that, and like say January 19th, they were playing in Preston. We had tickets for it.
Yeah.
So that was brilliant. So we went, and my friend and I got drunk in the pub round the corner, and not drunk. We didn't start off as being drunk. We were having rum and black because that was the thing people drank in those days. So we were drinking this rum and black, and then we decided, like, because she was really into Elvis Costello.
Yeah.
I was into Steve Naive's keyboard player.
Right, okay.
Young girls, I'm going to marry him. And my best friend's going like, well, I'll marry Elvis Costello and we can live happily ever after next door to each other. So which is what young girls think about. And like I said, we are going back to 79, so things were not as progressive as 19-year-olds are now.
No.
So I went straight. I said, right, okay, let's have a bet. Let's see who can meet them. So she's like, go on then. So after a few rum and blacks, we went to the venue, and I said, right, I'm off. And she's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the stage. So I went straight up to the stage, and I got hold of this guy, and I just said, excuse me, I just wanted to let you know that I'm here tonight, but I was with them while they filmed Saturday Night Live in America. And this guy's like, really? Are you sure? I was like, yeah. I was with them in New York when they filmed it. And this guy believed this, of course, because nobody else would know that. So he was like, right, this is great. I'm sure they'd love to see you again.
Yeah.
Why don't you, after the show, come back here and I'll take you to see them?
Fantastic. That's
my way in. I'm going to meet Steve Naive, who's going to fall in love, and I'm going to be happily ever after. So the end of the show, which was amazing, my friend and I went up to the barrier, and this guy came and he went, yeah, they want you to come straight back. My friend chickened out. She went, I'm not going. So I was like, okay, well, I am.
So you still went?
Still went. So he took me back into the dressing room and went, oh, they've gone. They were at the hotel. across the road, which is now the Holiday Inn on the Ring Road in Preston.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And they were in the bar, which was on the second floor. So he said, they're in the bar. Come on, let's go. So I'm following this man up these stairs, and they're all sat round in this big circle, and he pulls me up a chair, and I'm sat
just on your own,
just on my own with all the whole band.
Wow.
And this guy is out and about doing other things, and then he came over and he went, "Can I have a word?" So I was like, "Yeah." So he said, "Just come with me a minute." So I walk off, and he went, "You don't know them, do you?" I went, "No, but this is amazing." I just sat in the middle of this conversation with them, and because he's put my chair there, obviously none of the band members are going to say, "Who are you?"
No.
Because he was actually their tour manager.
Ah, right.
So they just thought, the tour manager, waiting for him to finish up and come and see me. And he just said, "Nobody has ever done this to me before. Nobody has ever got through like you have."
Yeah.
And he said, "Do you want to come on the tour with us?"
Wow.
And I went, "I'm going to have to ask my mum first."
Yeah.
And I said, "And besides that, I'm going to have to go because the last bus home leaves in like 5 minutes."
Yeah.
So I left in quite a hurry, and he rang, and I gave him my phone number, and he rang me up, and he said, "Do you want to come on tour?" So I said to my mum, "I've been asked to go on tour." And she said, she was like, she knew two things. She knew if she'd have said no, I would have gone anyway.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Okay, but I need to know exactly where you're going, which venues you're going to, and where you're staying that night."
Yeah, so she can feel safe.
So she could feel safe. And what I didn't know is she phoned then all the hotels up to where I was going. She booked me my own room.
Oh.
So I was always safe.
Yeah.
So I get to meeting the tour manager, who I know quite well now. So it's okay, and he would be okay me saying this, that he was actually looking for something else as well.
Right, okay.
Right. So I meet him, and it was in the bar, and it was late at night after the show and everything. And that my train got in, and walked up to him in the bar, and he said, "We'd better go to bed now." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, I've just got here, but that's fine." So we go to the lift, and he presses one button, and I went, "Oh no, I need this button." And I pressed another button. He was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, you just said we were going to bed." He said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Well, I'm on a different floor than you. My room's on a different floor than you." And it took him by shock so much that I got my own room that he was just taken back.
He thought it was quids in, didn't he?
Exactly. So he was just got out the lift a bit like, "Okay, I don't realise what's gone on here," and walked off, and I went to bed. Got up the next morning, and like, where is everybody? He's no longer in his room or anything. He's gone. Nobody was around, but I knew where the venue was, so I walked down to the venue, and I just sat there in the corner. I thought, nobody's speaking to me. Nobody's doing anything.
Right.
If this is what rock and roll life and being on the road is about,
it's boring.
It's boring, Yeah. So I'm sat there till it got to about 5:15 in the evening, and this guy just walked up to me and went, "Can you sell T-shirts? Can you sell things?"
Can you sell things?
And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, my grandparents had market stalls, so yeah, I can sell things." "Great. Come with me." So I just went with him. I'm like, "What is it?" He went, "Merchandiser's ill. She's in the hospital. Got nobody to sell the shirts." "Right. These are these. Get on with it." So I did, and I sold T-shirts that night.
Oh, there you go.
And that was how it happened. It was just so completely unexpected. Yeah. But the one thing I always love to say about that story is, when I was at school and the careers advisor, we had careers advisor in those days. Yeah. I had to go and see him, and he sent me to a psychiatrist. Careers came in to see me,
right? Because
I'd walked in, and the guy had gone, "What do you want to? What is it you're interested in?" I want to be an astronaut,
right?
And he started laughing. He's just like, "Can't do that." Like, why can't I do that?
Can't do that, yeah. You can't do that.
No, you can't do that. You're a woman, for one thing.
And you're from Preston.
Why would you want to be in it? It's like, no. Now, we've been through everything that, that we think in what what you've done at school and everything. I think sort of, you've not done any secretarial work, so we'll rule that out. So we've just thought a shop might be good for you.
Right, so they just pigeonhole you straight away. This is what you're good for.
Yeah, so I'm working in a shop. So I don't want to work in a shop. A nice shop. A department store, maybe on the makeup. I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I always say to him, look, I was selling T-shirts, so maybe I did follow your instructions after all.
Not quite a shop, though.
Yeah, not quite a shop, but I did start selling stuff. And that was it. So from there, I went home. After the tour with Elvis Costello finished, I went home.
How long was the tour?
I was only there for about a week.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
so, but that's a big experience.
Huge.
You've left home for a week.
Yeah.
On your own.
Yeah.
With
a rock band.
Yeah, with a rock band, and you don't know anyone.
No. So go back home, and I've got all these exciting stories to tell my friends. I got a backstage pass that had access all areas on it, and I was just, I was on cloud 9.
I bet you were.
Totally. And then I get a phone call completely out of the blue.
Right.
And it's this lady on the phone. And she said, hi, my name's Eve Carr. I own this T-shirt company called Holy T-shirts. You've been working for me for the last week.
All right.
I was like, oh, yeah, I had a brilliant time. Well, that's what I want to phone you about, because apparently you were really good at it. See, the careers guy was right in one way. So she said, we've got a tour coming up. It's with a band called Rush.
Oh, wow.
The only thing is...
So none of these small bands
No,
then.
none of these small bands, none of this living in the back of a van or anything,
No.
The trouble is, it's not in the UK.
Yeah.
It's in Europe.
Fantastic.
Would you like to go?
Wow, what an experience.
So, yeah. And then it didn't stop.
Yeah.
My only thing is that I was just young, and I learnt a lot on that very first tour.
Did you? Yeah.
An awful lot. There's a fantastic story again. I mean, this is one that's in the book, really, but we were playing Pink Pop Festival, and all the bands were staying in the same hotel. And the night before we were to play, Rush were on stage. We going down to the bar.
Yeah.
So I went down to the bar, and I'm at the bar about to order a drink, and there's 3 guys, quite good-looking guys, sat on this sofa with blonde hair, and one of them was Sting. It was the Police.
Oh, wow.
And they sat there, and one of them just shouted over, "Don't serve her, she's too young." The problem being is that I was too young.
Yeah.
I was 19, but we were in a cocktail bar in a hotel, and he was supposed to be 21. So the guy looked at me and he went, "Just get me your passport and it'll be fine." And I went, "I can't. They're right, I'm too young."
Right.
So then they're all like, "I'm really sorry. We're really sorry. We just thought you looked really, we didn't realise." And so they're apologizing like mad. Even Sting went up to the bar and said, "What is it you want to drink? I'll buy it for you." But the guy then went, "No, can't do it."
Yeah.
Geddy Lee found out that this had happened. So when he came down, he went, "Have you got any private rooms with a private bar that we can rent? I'll hire, for the night." It's like the hotel went, "Yeah. Okay, I'll hire a private room."
Oh, wow.
And so this private room and this bar were open just for me.
Oh, that's nice.
And then because everybody felt sorry for me, and the police and everybody else, I had so many vodkas lined up that it was crazy. And I finally went to bed, and I'd made friends with one of the roadies from Rush, who's sadly no longer with us, called Skip, but he was the same age as I was. Right. So the pair of us had a connection there because we were just young and looked after each other in a way. And Geddy decided, it was the time everybody was leaving. So Geddy, Skip, myself, we got in the lift. Skip ended up apparently in a corridor. I ended up with my room key in the door, but I was woken up by them vacuuming around me in the corridor. I made it to the door, I got the key in, and then I just dropped. But Geddy Lee was still in the lift.
Was he?
And he was just been riding. He was still there when we left, it's like somebody actually Skip actually went and got him then, because he'd been in the lift all night.
Fantastic.
Just collapsed in the corner going up and down.
That seems much more fun than the week of it with Elvis Costello, though.
Yeah, well, and everything one after another. It was, every band was different. But what I did make my fatal, I would say, I've said fatal mistake, but actually it wasn't. It was when the management that was connected to the merchandising company, because the manager of Motorhead and the Damned at the time had an interest within the merchandise company. So he sat down with me one day when I was counting badges out and things for, we used to put bags of 100 pin badges, and it was really mundane because you just sat there with this huge box of pin badges, putting them into hundreds, and of course I'm the youngest, so who's going to get the nasty jobs?
Yeah, of course.
I'm the one that rolled all the posters up before the doors opened. So it was one of those, and he just said, "What kind of music are you into?" And I just thought he was making conversation, because this is like Doug Smith, this huge manager guy. Hawkwind really had a lot of bands at that time, and he's having a conversation with little me, and I'm sat on the floor doing his back, and I'm like, "Oh, I hate heavy metal."
Right.
And he's like, "Really? Interesting. So you're into more punk stuff and everything like that?" So yeah, I love that. So I can't wait to go on tour with the Damned. He was like,
"Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, okay." So obviously I did that particularly, came into the office, said, "Right, what's next?" He went, "Well, we've decided we're going to put you with Motorhead." I don't like Motorhead. I mean, Lemmy scared me to death. The first time I met him, I ended up in a straitjacket. And that was in the offices when I was sat downstairs. Again, going back a few months, I sat downstairs on the sofa, waiting to be introduced to Doug Smith. And basically there was 2 receptionists in there. One was called Sue, and she was blonde, so glamorous and very blonde. Then there was Motorcycle Irene.
Right.
She had jet black hair. I'd say skirt, but it's more like a belt. The longest legs ever, black boots right up to her thighs, black makeup on, everything. And she's talking to this guy with this leather jacket on, with a real rough voice, long hair, smoking a cigarette, and a glass in his hand. And I'm just sat on the sofa, keeping out of the way, waiting for them to say, "Send her up." And the guy and Motorcycle Irene they turned around to me and they were looking at me, and I'm trying not to look at them, looking away, going, wonder what's going on. And this guy goes, "Kid, come here." So I'm like, "Me?" And he's like, "Yeah, come here." So I was like, "What is it?" And the student went to the desk. He went, "Put this on." And he's like, "This way, put your arms through there." So I put my arms through there, and then the next thing he's tying it up at the back, and he put me in a straitjacket. And then he said, "Try getting out of that." And left. Just left. So that was my first encounter of Lemmy. So realistically, was it a band I wanted to go on tour with? No. But they taught me everything I knew about the music industry, because they did it all. They did it first.
Yeah.
They did it before anybody else did it. They were a law unto themselves. Having a Motorhead backstage pass on you around your neck was like having a license to kill, but without killing. That extreme, that you could do anything and nothing could touch you. And that's what it felt like. Right. So being in that environment for 10 years, every band I ever worked for after that, I always used to say to them,
"Nothing in comparison."
Nothing, because I'd get these huge rap acts or somebody, and you go like, "Please don't try it." I'd say to them first encounter, like, "Look, please do not try anything stupid, because I'm just going to laugh at you." Because there's no way.
You had the masters.
I had the masters, so you can't even compare to what they've done.
No.
And you'll just look silly, so don't bother. And so that was my experience of touring.
So he's a true legend.
Yes.
In terms of rock circles, Lemmy, isn't he? And
absolutely. The first night I spent on a tour bus was with him. Was actually what had happened was we were in Europe with them, and we had our own vehicle, the merchandising girls, and there's me and another girl, and our boss always put us, like, say, with bands we didn't like, because, and it made sense, because by doing that, I wasn't interested in anybody with long hair.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
You know,
There wasn't the
heavy
attraction
metal.
there.
There was no attraction there, and I wasn't interested in the music. So I was there to work.
You were there to work, yes. That makes sense.
So it did make sense. He was very clever. He always put a blonde and a brunette though on tour.
Did he really?
Yeah, I mean, it harks back to Some Like It Hot, you know, like all the old movies when you see like Marilyn Monroe and Joan Crawford together.
Yeah.
You know, the blonde and the brunette, always.
Yeah.
So I was the brunette, basically, and Jan and I were on tour in Europe, and we were, like I say, had our own vehicle, and then we weren't selling that much, so it decided, and they needed somebody else to do another tour back home. So it decided that I would stay with Motorhead and Jan would go back home and take the vehicle. I had to get on the band's tour bus. My first night on there, I just thought, well, I didn't even realise that there were bunks on these buses at this time, you know. So I'm sat at the front and I'm just sat in this 2-seater seat and I'm just making myself comfy, like thinking, I'm going to sleep here tonight. Yeah. And Lemmy came up to me and he just said, where are you going to sleep? So I went, here. And he went, come with me. And I thought, oh crap, here we go again. He's going to tie me up in another jacket, you know. And he takes me down the street, so there, or there. Oh. And I just went, I'll take a bottom one. Always sensible. Well, if you're a girl on tour, always take the bottom bunk.
Okay, why?
Because if you fall out of the bunk, you're not going to be half on show, falling out on top of, you know, people's eyes are at a certain level, so the top bunk is way out of, you know, you just don't do that. Secondly, the middle bunk, if there's 3 bunks rather, the middle bunk is, you've got people underneath you, you've got people on top of you, and it's, I just didn't like that. But the bottom one, you can fall out and people just stand up or push you out the way. Yeah, you know, so you literally, it's a better feeling being on the bottom. One major flaw though is the smell. You can imagine like roadies and band people that they take their shoes off to go to bed. Those shoes have been on for like 18 hours. Oh yeah. You know, for the whole tour.
Proper leather.
Yeah, and they stank.
Yeah.
But back in the day we had curtains as shutters.
Okay, right.
So I used to spray the curtains with perfume. So as we were moving along, the curtains would waft and I'd just get the smell of the perfume rather than the smell of the sweaty boots.
Smell of Lemmy's sweaty boots.
Yes, but I love saying this to people because, again, with there not being many girls on tour, girls were always the groupies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So because of me being in the industry so long, I love to say to people now, yeah, I used to sleep under Lemmy.
If you're enjoying everything that we're doing here at Drake, Michigan, please subscribe, ring my bell, and let's enjoy this journey together. Yeah.
And I love that because you see the reaction on people's faces. It's like, really? You know, and the worst comes. You can see that they're thinking of the worst thing. And it's like, and then I have to explain to them, no, it was on a tour bus. And I was on the bottom bunk, and he always had the middle one or the top.
Did you ever get tarred in that brush of a groupie?
All the time.
Yeah.
And that's why I take it as a joke.
Yeah.
Because it's like, look, you have no idea. So rather than get angry about it, I just laugh at it.
Yeah, sure.
And plus, did you see some of those groupies from the 60s and 70s? They were stunning. Yeah. You know, some of these, Pamela de Beers, she was gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she is.
So... yeah, you know, and they loved doing what they were doing. You know, don't call them because she had a collection of plaster casts that nobody can compare with. So
she made a career out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And a big career out of it, really.
Probably made more money than anybody.
Probably.
But they were, I mean, some of them were gorgeous. I used to look at them and I was jealous. You know, they were 6 foot tall. They were really tall. So that was one thing. They had legs up to their armpits, you know, and long flowing hair, beautifully curled. Their makeup was gorgeous. They just stood there and there I am with a pair of trainers and a pair of jeans and a t-shirt with no makeup, and I just was like, yeah. So I was like, wow, at these women, because they were amazing. So no, I don't get worried about being tired as that.
So when you were on the tour with, so that'd be your first tour with Motorhead.
Yeah.
And how long was that for then?
Oh gosh, well then it never stopped because Motorhead used to tour for 9 months of the year.
Ah, okay.
And Lemmy loved touring.
Yeah.
He just loved to play live.
Yeah.
And that was his thing. So it was basically UK tour, Europe tour, America, back to an album. UK tour.
Yeah.
And it just went on for days, and that was it. We had some, because he loved playing so much, I mean, some of the names of the tours, like No Sleep Till Hammersmith.
Yeah.
Never a Day Off.
Yeah.
No sleep at all. And that was
That's
Europe.
his passion, isn't it?
Yeah,
So.
it was, and he didn't sleep, he never slept.
Did you have time where you went working with any other bands?
Yeah.
In that as well, yeah.
Well, I did a lot of like Sammy Hagar's,
I know you got that, and I still wear it. I still wear that Sammy Hagar because he was one of my biggest heroes.
Yeah, I know. So
I appreciate that. It's a brilliant T-shirt.
It just Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath.
I
mean, it's a well-known fact that I threw Madonna off a stage in America once.
Oh, did you? I hope you did it physically.
No, I just told her to move, and very abruptly, and she was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, that was when we were doing a charity event in Los Angeles,
right.
And my band Concrete Blonde had the lead singer was female, Jeanette Napolitano, and she didn't like anybody being anywhere around while she was doing her sound check. Mm-hmm. The only people that were allowed was myself, the sound engineer, the lighting, the lighting guy, and the monitor guy, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this woman stood on the stage at the side by the monitor desk. She had a pair of jeans on, a pair of trainers, very understated. Because they always say that in Hollywood. The understated stars just walk around. The ones that really nobody knows about walk around with the sunglasses on and the hat and everything because they want everybody to go, "Ooh, who could that be?"
Yeah.
So she was completely understated, and I'm walking over to her, and the monitor guy knew exactly what I was going to do. He knew that I was going to say move, and he's waving his arms at me, going, "Don't do this! Don't stop!" And I'm like looking at it, going like, "No, she can't stand there." So I just said, "Do you mind moving? We're about to do a sound check, and we don't like anybody on the stage." And she's like, "Okay, fine." I still hadn't recognised her. It wasn't until after she'd gone that the monitor engineer turned around to me and said, "You do know who that was, don't you?" And I was like, "No idea." And I don't care. And he just went, "It was Madonna." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Expecting some kind of
Backlash
comeback.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the only thing I got was apparently she turned around and went, "It's exactly what I would have wanted."
Well, that's fair enough then, isn't it?
Yeah. I threw... see, me not knowing anything about heavy metal, when I was working for Black Sabbath, I actually threw Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi out the building.
Did you? Fantastic.
That was, like I say, I was rolling the posters, sat on the floor rolling the posters. Everybody else had left, leave me to do the work. And these two guys walked through the door, and I said, "The box office is around the corner." And they just looked at me and started laughing and started to walk in. I said, "You can't go through there. I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to walk you out." And they found it so funny that I actually, was like, "Sorry, you're not coming in." Yeah. That they actually walked out and went round to the back door. Wow. And it wasn't until later that the promoter's agent came to me and went, there was two guys in earlier. I went, "Yeah, it's okay. I threw them out. They were trying to get into the auditorium." "Yeah. Well, you know that they're in the band." And I'm like, "No." So...
And again, two legends as well.
Two legends, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So, okay, so you're in Motorhead now then. And you're selling T-shirts. You're getting to know the bands.
Yeah.
Is there any point where they're actually trying it on as well, or did they never bother?
Never bothered.
They never bothered. They were respectful.
Very respectful, yeah.
And you must, I think. We've had these discussions about Lemmy in the past. He was very much into sort of his military stuff, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
He's very much a geek in a way, wasn't he? Like, he had certain things he really loved, didn't he?
I once went to his apartment in London to drop some things off, and he had to sign a load of albums, I think. So from the office, I was taking the albums round. I rang the doorbell, and he opened the door, and he's there with nothing on his feet, a dressing gown, which was a Union Jack dressing gown. And I walk in, he said, come in. He said, put them on the table, and he sat down by the table, and there was all these Airfix models that he was painting. And he loved to do Airfix models.
Did he?
You know, so there's Lemmy, who you think is this tough guy, and he's just painting his Airfix models.
Yeah.
You know, which was amazing. But he had so much memorabilia.
I believe so, yeah.
There was a time when we were in Germany, and we were going to Berlin, and I had a car there, and he was on the tour bus, and he just said, oh, Kim, I'm coming in the car with you. He said, you'll be at the hotel in a couple of hours. This lot are going to take, you know, a lot longer. So I'm like, okay. So he sat in the front, and luckily the promoter's agent decided to come with us. I'm so pleased he did, because obviously he was fluent in German.
Right.
And because, he was German. So he sat in the back. And I've always said this about Germans. This is one thing, that if you ever want to know how to spell something, ask a German.
Okay.
Because their English is so good that they can spell the worst words when English people can't even think of them. So he was in the back, fast asleep, and Lemmy was in the front. But Lemmy had the car light on, so he could see, because he's reading a book.
Okay.
He's reading a book about the SS.
Right.
He has a hat on that he's bought that day.
Yeah.
Which is a German war hat.
Yeah.
Right. He's got all his gear on, like he usually had, all his rings and badges and everything else. And I actually thought it was foggy. But it wasn't foggy. It was the fact that he was smoking so much, the fog was inside the car. So we're driving down this road, and it was called the corridor.
Right.
And it was a very long straight road. And there was one service station on there in the middle. And if you were a Western person, you went to one side, and if you were from the Eastern Bloc, you went to the other.
Yeah.
So you were no, you couldn't meet anybody.
Yeah.
Also, every mile or so, there was a tower with guards in with guns. Along each side of the roadway, there were huge fences, like 20 feet high fences.
Wow. Okay.
And it was actually quite frightening. So I was pleased that I had people with us. And I had been told, though, that once they see your number plate, you're going to get stopped.
Okay.
So I was aware of that, and I knew all you had to do was pay them the fine.
Yeah.
Had that ready, and then they'd let you go. So it was a case of just making money out of you, basically. But of course, it was a little bit different that night with the fog, the light on. The guy sat looking like, you know, he'd come from some German weird thing going on. And like I say, he sat there with the book and the cigarette and the drink, of course. There was a drink.
Yeah.
There was a drink there. And we get pulled, I think it was about 3 to 5 times. And my heart was in my mouth every time, because I just thought, this isn't real, because there was guys there with guns and everything. You know, and you'd wound down the window, and luckily the German guy would speak to them and everything. And Lemmy just turn around, head slowly, and go, all right, mate. And then turn back and predominantly hold his book up and start reading it. And it was so scary. So scary.
Very calm, isn't he?
Yeah. I was just like, sigh of relief when we made it to the other end. But I think the next day when I had to drive back on my own in the daylight was probably more scary, because I was on my own. I thought I could go missing here and nobody will know where I am. But of course it didn't happen. It was fine.
But you felt safe with these guys, though.
Totally safe. Totally safe. And it was the big family. You know, their road crew, for instance, Hobbsy, before he died, had been with them for 30 years. He'd been with, you know, everybody was so loyal. It was this huge family, and everybody took care of each other. Phil Campbell, yeah. Wurzel was lovely. Wurzel was not what you expected, you know. He was this rock god, but he'd been in the army.
Yeah.
You know, he'd been in the army before, and there's actually a photograph, I think, in the book, and he's looking at his his Rolex because he had his
Did he? Yeah.
he was so well spoken.
Yeah.
Awfully like this. So you'd look at like Lemmy to be talking and be like, oh, in this gruff voice, and then there was Phil Campbell, and then you get to Wordsman and you go, good afternoon. And it was just so bizarre. It was so different. Yeah, it was
very British.
Very British. He was totally, but he was such a lovely man. Such a lovely man.
So you ended up being the tour manager, though. Was it easy, do you think, for you because you already had that relationship with them? I mean, at the end of the day, you were these guys who were notorious. Yeah. Really.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, some of the things that we got up to.
Yeah.
If I think about them now, and I think, like for instance, if my daughter did that, I'd be mortified.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But it was completely sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
The ultimate, and nobody said no to anything.
Yeah.
We were once in Germany, and we finished the gig, and we'd gone for something to eat after the gig. Everybody used to meet up at a certain point. It was usually the first service station.
Mm-hmm.
And we rolled in there, we went in, had something to eat, and then ready for this huge, I think it was an 18-hour drive we had.
Yeah.
I went outside, it had been snowing. So we get on the Autobahn, and suddenly it was like sliding all over the place, everything was. So the police, one of the Arctics had an accident. And, everybody was okay, and he was okay, the equipment was, everything was fine, but it was just in a position that had to block the Autobahn, basically. Mm-hmm. So they shut it off, and they said it was too dangerous. Even in Germany, when they've got snow plows and everything out, it was coming down too hard, it was too much, that they closed the Autobahns off. So we were told to come off. We didn't. We drove through that. We were the only people on the motorway. The police were so like, oh, for goodness sake, well, just go kill you. They'd given up. It's like, well, go on then. We've told you not to. Yeah. You're all going to be dead by the morning. It doesn't matter. And this is not a good advert, but I remember the coach driver saying to me, because out of the two girls that were driving the van that day, I was the only one that had my license for a few years.
Yeah.
The other girl had only just passed a driving test, so she'd never even been near snow.
Yeah.
Let alone how much snow. So I was told I'd have to drive it, and the coach driver, I was really nervous.
I bet, yeah.
So I said to the coach driver, I don't think I can do this. I said, because our wheelbase is outside your wheelbase, so I'm going from side to side as it is, and he just said, okay, come with me. So I went with him, and he poured me this huge drink. He said, drink it. So I drank it. I said, I can't drink it. I'm drunk now. And he said, exactly. He said, but now you're relaxed. Now you just go with the flow. And we did. And we skidded for hundreds of... And we got to where we were going the next day. I mean, obviously, we got out the snow and the alcohol had worn off. But, yeah, it was things like that. That were just... You just wouldn't even entertain nowadays.
Sure.
We had... On tour with us, I mean, the drugs part, Lemmy was known for taking his drugs.
Yeah. Speed.
Yeah. Yeah. And
speed balls and all that stuff.
Just in a bag, and he'd stick his fingernail in and just up his nose, or he'd get his flick knife out, and
that's it. Yeah, I've heard those stories.
And it was true. I mean, we used to laugh, and we always said he would die once he'd given up. And maybe it was true, because apparently he heard out that he had cancer on the Friday and he died on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So maybe he stopped doing his drugs for that. I don't know, but, it was one of those things that everybody always used to say, that once he stopped taking his drugs, that would be it. He was just... They had a flight case even. They had their own flight case.
Did they?
And it was called surgery. And it used to be rolled out.
I love they have a name for it.
Onto the side of the stage.
Right.
It was very strange, because they do their sound check and then it was dinner. Mm-hmm. And at dinner everything would quiet. There was no noise.
Yeah.
So even through the PA, there was no music at all playing. It was just complete quiet. But there was surgery at the side of the stage, and there was a line for every single person.
Was there?
And it was basically you went to dinner, then you had surgery, and then you went to do your job. Surgery. And that's what it was known as. It was like, so have you been to surgery yet? It's like, no. Oh, I'm just going up now. And it was just sit there, this flight case. I mean, yes, I did take drugs, and I came off them in the end, but it gave you a sense of where you were invincible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I did a line in front of a police officer.
Did you? Yeah.
And the police officer was so shocked he never said a word.
Right.
But it was just, you just did these outrageous things. Motorhead had their own people on tour that used to supply the drugs.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They were ex-SAS.
Oh, were they?
Guys. So they were brilliant. And one of the nicknames, which didn't even dawn on me till years later, he was called Chef. The obvious. And we went into Scotland one night, and they were driving their own car, and they were in front of us, and they just pulled onto the side of the motorway onto the hard shoulder, and they got two huge Marshall amps strapped to the top of the car, and they're playing the bagpipes as we went over the border. But it wasn't that normal, because they were at the front, and then we'd made this huge like formation shape that took the whole of 3 lanes over with the buses and the trucks and everything. So we were in this V shape, and we drove at 5 miles an hour over the border with the bagpipes playing. The police sat in their cars and watched. Because they didn't do a thing. Not a thing.
Yeah, you must have felt a little bit untouchable then.
Yeah, we did, and I think that's when it got scary. And everybody was so good at their jobs, We'd roll up. There was once we played we never would cancel a gig for anything. Lemmy wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
And the worst one we did was when we turned up late because of the snow in Austria. It was, and we got to the venue, and it was actually a tent in a car park. Mm-hmm. Fine, there was snow everywhere. But what they hadn't done was remove the snow from the car park before they put the tent up. So the stage was okay and backstage was okay, but the front was still full of snow. Where everybody was supposed to stand was full of this ice and snow. So the Motorhead crew actually cleared the car park, they cleared the inside of the tent with shovels, and still managed to put the equipment up and do the gig. And that was at 3:00 in the afternoon when the doors opened at 7. So
incredible. Yeah.
It was just
So the great work ethic really as well.
Yeah.
I mean obviously people want to listen to stories about Lemmy, but this is really about you and your life story. But before we get onto that, your one story, like Lemmy had that biography. Because obviously he was at the Rainbow, is it the
Rainbow Bar and Grill?
The Rainbow Bar and Grill. That was his place where he would prop up a gambling machine, wouldn't he? And he'd have his JD and his cigarettes and stuff like that.
And he'd just play pinball or gambling machines all the time.
All day, yeah. And people could walk in and he'd just be there, wouldn't he? So did you ever visit him there? Did you ever go in
when he moved to LA was when he'd broken from the management company that I worked for, and he'd moved on. My biggest regret was obviously Lemmy would then remember me from that management company, but by then I'd moved on.
Yeah.
And I was actually at SIR Studios in LA, and we were in one studio, and next door was Motorhead, and we'd finished, and came out, and I heard them playing. I wanted to go in, but then I was looking after another band, so I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it's my biggest regret ever, because that would have been the last time I've spoken to him.
Right.
And even Phil Campbell has turned around and said, well, why didn't you just take 2 minutes? And I went, I don't know why I didn't.
You.
Something stopped me. And it's, huge regret.
Mm. We can't... Yeah, we try not to live in regrets, do we? But your journey's been incredible so far in this discussion. I mean, what experiences they are. They're like, As for me, when I was growing up, I've always loved my music, and especially rock bands as well. So your stories and your experiences there are like dreams for someone like who's into rock music.
I guess it wasn't until I wrote the book that I realised what I'd actually done, and it comes home to you, because when you're in the midst of it and just doing it, you don't think that it's anything unusual or spectacular.
Yeah, but you're living that life though,
because you're living in the fast lane. You really are.
But in a way, that's like saying, well, David Bowie is this god, and then you meet him and he's 5'5". You're living that life. It's different. The perceptions are all there, aren't they?
There's certain things that I've realised that my daughter's pointed out, is that I remember she was about 7 or 8, and she turned around to me and she went, "Mum, why do we never go on holiday?" And I'm like, well, we do. So we only go for a couple of days. I was like, yeah, I know. She said, well, other people go to Mallorca for like 2 weeks. Why do we never do that? And I said, because I can't. And it was trying to explain to her that I've been to these places, and I've stayed
had all those experiences
in the best hotels that there are. And I loved it. 5-star hotels where you could have anything at 4 o'clock in the morning. Didn't matter. Yeah. And they were there to help you and give you whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to the same place and stay in a 3-star knowing that was round the corner. And I did it once, and I didn't come back from a holiday feeling refreshed. I came back feeling depressed.
Yeah.
So it has those. That. It does have those effects on you.
Yeah.
It has effects of certain things. So I remember when my boiler broke down once at home. I got the plumber, and he came a couple of days later, because that was the only time he could fit it in. And when he came, he was like, "Oh, it's going to be another week till I get the parts." And I'm thinking back to all the times where we had to find a multi-core because we lost the multi-core. For what are you going to do for a gig without nothing? But we found a multi-core in 4 hours and had it delivered within 6.
Yeah.
So how come it's taken a boiler man, a plumber, a week and a bit to fix my boiler?
Yeah.
Coming back to living in the real world was really difficult.
I can imagine, yeah, because there's big money involved in bands the size of Motorhead, though, isn't there? Money talks a lot, and
and I had it in my strapped to my person. The largest amount I ever had was $750,000. And if you've ever tried to count that, the worst part, we were in Vegas, and I think that's why I kept my sanity.
Right.
Because we were actually in Vegas, and what's $750,000 when you're in Vegas? The guy on probably in the top floor of that hotel had 10 times as much money on him than I had. Yeah. So I never thought of it, and I never actually thought of it being money, which sounds bizarre. Black Sabbath did a gig at Bindley Hall once, and the guys used to go around there was 3 merchandising stalls, and the money was just put into bin liners. 2 guys would walk up, just grab the bin liner and take them to this room. And this room was about 6 foot by 4 foot. It wasn't that big, but there's people in there just counting it.
Yeah.
And if I said that they were sat on 3 foot high of paper money, that is no exaggeration. They were just sat on top of all this money, just counting it.
Wow.
And they were there till the next evening. But like I said, this $750,000 was in this hotel room, and it was all over the floor. It was just $1,000 here. It was everywhere.
Did you have plenty of security around you?
No, I had none. Again, something that you never think about. I did carry, and this was so out there, I was asked before I ever went to America what piece I'd like. What piece did I use?
Okay.
And I was a bit like, peace?
Peace, yeah.
Peace and love? What do you mean by peace? And the guy was like, do you take a Magnum? And I'm like, suddenly it dawned, he's talking about a gun.
Yeah.
And I just went, look, I have to be honest with you. If somebody is coming for that money, I am not going to fight them off with a gun because they're probably better. Their aim's probably better. They're quicker.
Yeah.
And so what's the point?
Yeah.
I'm dead. They've got the money. I'm just going to give them the money.
Yeah.
But then I got it into my head that I thought, oh, I better do something about this before I go.
Right.
So I found a martial arts guy.
Yeah.
And it was Sunday. I gave him a call. He said, come along to the class tonight and have a look, and I'll have a chat with you properly. I was going on tour on Tuesday.
Right.
So I got like Sunday, Monday. So why I thought I could learn any martial arts
in a couple of days.
In a couple of, yeah, you know. So I was laughed at when I actually met the guy. But he said he'd spend a couple of hours with me on the Monday. And he gave me some best advice ever on what to do, you know, and just to keep calm, give them the money, and how to keep them. Little tricks like, this is a great one for women that are on their own in any hotels. Most hotels are done by people that work in the hotels. If they're going to steal something, by the actual people that are working there. In-house, yeah. Because they know who you are, they know where you are, and they know what your job is too. Even if you've gone under a pseudonym, they still know who you are. So there's no point in that. So basically, I was told to take an extra large T-shirt, a pair of extra large boxer shorts, and some socks. And when I went, there was a ritual I used to go to. I'd open the hotel door.
Yeah.
I put my, not the money, but my suitcase with my belongings to open the door, leave it open. All the lights on. I go in a circle, check in the whole room, make sure nobody was in the wardrobe, nobody was under the bed, nobody was at the side of the bed, nobody was in the bathroom. Once I'd done that, I'd close the door. Then I'd leave the bathroom light on. So there was always a light in there.
Yeah.
And then you threw the socks and the T-shirt, then the underpants on the floor by the door, mixed in with a few of your things.
Right.
When somebody opens that door, they're thinking, this woman's on her own. No, she's not. Whose are those?
Yeah.
And if they're extra large things, this guy's huge. He's a big guy, and she sneaked a big guy in there.
Yeah.
And they'll
creating perception again.
Absolutely. So I still use that trick now. But I still go through that routine. Doesn't matter if I've got 50p on me, or you know, if I ever in a hotel for any reason now, I always do the whole
shows the power of the mind, really, when the perception can. But that must made you feel safe as well.
It did, until we were in a town somewhere. I can't remember the town, but we'd done an overnight one, so it was a really early check-in. And we were just using the hotel rooms as day rooms. And at this point, we only usually had two, one for males, one for females. That was it. And the crew had already gone, and I made my way up to one of the rooms. So usually adjacent anyway, you know, with the interlocking door. And I'd gone in the room, I put my stuff, done my check, put my stuff down, and there was a knock on the door.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I ever opened it without asking who it was.
Oh, no.
Because it was so quick. It happened when I'd done the thing, and I just thought it was somebody, one of the other band members.
Yeah.
And it actually sounded like the drummer's knock on the door.
Right.
And I opened the door, and this guy stood there, and he went, I'm looking for Kim. And I was like, yeah. I said, they're not here at the moment. Oh, do you know? And Kim, again, in those times, was known, in America, was a male name.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, it was mostly men. So it was like, when does Kim get here? So I'm like, I've no idea. I think they've already gone. I'm just using, you know, like cleaning up and doing that sort of stuff in the room. And he left. The dangerous part was we were actually on the executive floor, which you needed a special key to get to.
Right.
I immediately called down to the front desk and told them what had happened. They sent up security straight away. And had a police escort all the way till we left the state, because this guy had suddenly had a thing. I think poor guy was mentally ill as well.
Yeah.
But how he got my name, where he got it from, I've no idea. How he even got onto that floor, I've no idea. But the police were taking it quite seriously.
Well, you walked a tightrope, didn't you?
Yeah. But again, you don't think of those things. It's just
No, you just get on with
get on with it.
It's your journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So what did you have a taste for management after you did that, or did something click inside and you thought, well, I can do this?
Well, I never even had that opportunity to think I can do this.
Right. Okay.
I was just doing it.
You just did it. Yeah.
I just did it. It just moved from one progression to another, from the t-shirts to the tour accounting to the tour management.
To management, yeah.
But I did give, when my daughter was born in 1995, and when I walked in from I worked pregnant up until a week before she was born.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually on a tour bus, and the last night on the Saturday they had to take the bunk out above me because I couldn't get into my bunk.
Right.
I'd suddenly got so big and I was still on tour, but I did have an assistant with me that used to do all the running about. So I had my daughter, and I remember walking. I stayed in hospital for a week because I wanted the rest more than I was just using it as an excuse to just some time out.
Yeah.
And plus I was really scared too because I'd not been to any antenatal, nothing.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about babies or anything, and I didn't even know I was pregnant. Up until it was January, and my daughter was born in May.
Wow.
So even that didn't come into it. I just thought I felt a bit sick on the tour bus because we were doing long journeys.
Yeah.
There was something different.
Yeah.
My husband, her father, we'd seen each other in September, but it was Christmas before we saw each other again. So again, the fact, and just because of being around all these men and everything else that went on, there was no, there wasn't any cycle or anything I was missing, or just life just went on, and I didn't realise. So when I found out I was pregnant, it was a bit of a shock, something that I wasn't ready for. And like I say, I worked till a week before she was born. She was born, and then as I'm walking in the hospital after my week off, the phone's ringing. So I pick up the phone, I put my daughter down in a bed thing, seat thing.
Yeah.
I put her down and I picked up the phone, and it was America on the phone, and they were, how quickly can you get here? And I'm like, I've just had a baby. Yeah, okay, but when can you start? Seriously, I haven't even got her out of a carry seat. She's still in it, and you're asking me, we've just walked in from the hospital. Yeah, but when can you come? So I said, okay, give me a month or so and I'll come back. And I tried it, and luckily it was only a two week tour, and I hated every minute of it. Did you? I just wanted to be at home. Suddenly the mum instinct kicked in.
Priorities had changed.
And my priorities had changed, and so I kept going, doing mostly UK tours because I didn't want to be so far away that I couldn't get home. And then I'd done a few British bands. I'd done Hawkwind, and I'd done Chumbawamba, and I'd done Credit to the Nation, and so there's a few things going on. And again, I was like, no, I just didn't. She was getting older by this time. She was going to school and things, and I missed that. I wanted to be part of her journey, taking her to school, the little things.
Yeah.
So I quit.
Right, okay.
And I just said, no more, I've had enough. And even, there was, so that I was not black, I was sort of like, well, if you come back, you can have this, you can have this, you can have this. I'm like,
so you're encouraged.
No, I just wanted to be at home. And so, like I say, I quit, and then the Brits were on. And Chumbawamba were playing.
Yeah, they were quite popular when that song.
That Get Knocked Down.
Yeah, that was popular, wasn't it?
Yeah, and John Prescott was in the audience.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I remember that now. Yeah.
And Dan But No Bacon just picked up the ice bucket and tipped it over his head. And there was uproar, absolute uproar. Their poor tour manager at the time did not go about it the right way.
Yeah.
So I had 2:00 in the morning, I had the manager on the phone going, you know how you've quit? I'm like, yes. Why are you phoning me, Douglas, at this time in the morning? Well, I'm phoning you to tell you you're on a flight in the morning. You've got to get to Manchester Airport by 6 o'clock. You're on a flight to London. I'm not coming. It's like, no, you don't understand. I found you a new job. I was like, what is it? He said, well, you can go on tour. You can take care of things by sorting out problems of bands, and then you can come home. So you'll be gone for about 2 days. That's all it'll be. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what do I have to do?
Interesting role.
And he just said, well, let's call it troubleshooting. So I'm like, okay. Chumbawamba, because it wasn't live then, and I wasn't interested. I was trying to keep myself away from the music industry for this whole reason that I didn't want to be dragged back into it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, they chucked an ice bucket of water over John Prescott last night. Oh, like, wow, okay. But the tour manager has gone around apologising to everybody and offering, like, to dry clean his suit, and is there anything else I could do for him, and this, that and the other. And the band are going ballistic because that's not what they're about. They're an anarchist band and we're trying to go the opposite. So the band are going nuts. And the whole thing's kicked off, and I thought, send you in and you'll sort it out. It's like, thanks, but it sounds like fun to do something like that. So I did. And I then became a troubleshooter for different bands on tour.
Fantastic.
They now call it crisis management.
Okay.
It's got the posh name to it. But at the time it was like, what do we call this? And then I did some work for EMI for other bands as well, for different reasons. Like one that springs to mind that nobody would think of, because the obvious is when somebody's drinking too much, taking too many drugs, doing this, that and the other, or something like that. But I love to tell this one because this was a guy who was great at what he did. And he was huge in Germany. Yeah. He was a postman, and he'd been spotted by EMI doing karaoke one night in a pub. Oh, wow. And he used to do Elvis. It was Elvis. He used to sing as Elvis. Yeah. And these two guys from EMI were sat in this pub, and he was like doing his karaoke thing, and they'd had a few, and they started talking to each other about, gosh, this guy's really good. But, why do Elvis Presley impersonators always do the same songs? Wouldn't it be really funny if he played something like from Nirvana? Yeah. Or it's like, or played something from Janis Joplin, or did it's like, that would be hilarious. So again, this banter's going back and forth. Oh, we could do an album. And they're like, we could call it Gravelands instead of Gracelands. And the whole thing started to... And so then in their drunken stupor, they went on to him and went, are you interested in making a record deal? And he said yes. So they went away, and then they actually got onto this and the whole thing. And Germany were really into that kind of something that was different out there. Yeah. And so they actually put it together. Wow, cool. And this guy signed a contract. And it was because he was Irish Catholic, got married very young, had about 5 children by then, still very young. And they were living in a flat above an off licence. Right. The money he was given by EMI would enable him to move his family to a house where all his children could have a bedroom and central heating.
Isn't it amazing? You'd never know what can happen in your life, because people could just give up at any point, and you never know, do you?
No, you don't. So he signed this contract, got the money, moved house, did everything else, and then suddenly EMI went, okay, now you've got to earn your money. Right. And it's like, but I've done that. Yeah, but you have to go on tour. Yeah. You signed your deal now. I don't want to go on tour because I don't want to leave my family. But you have to. Otherwise, you're going to have to give it back.
It's a tough industry, and it's one of the worst industries.
It is. It's
it's dark as well. There's a lot of dark side to it. Yeah.
And people don't realise it when, like you say, there's so much money involved. So much money involved.
And control, because we're talking about perception as well. So the music industry controls populations.
Yeah, exactly.
Cultures
and everything. So basically this poor guy then goes on tour and hates every second of it. Right. And every day goes missing. And every day wants his family there. And he was just desperate. Yeah. So again, I was asked to go to Germany and sort that out.
Sorted out.
And I worked for him quite a while, where his wife would come out. I mean, this is a great story. His wife came out and they had the usual argument, like, I don't want you to go on stage. Because she was, like I say, they were just so young. I mean, they were still in their 20s and with all these babies and stuff at home that she had and children she was looking after. And the usual argument, she was jealous. She was jealous of the attention. I mean, he was going on with like a leather suit dressed as Elvis Presley. And of course there was women ogling him, you know. He was great. And they throw underwear and stuff at him on stage. And she just couldn't stand it, you know. And he, in a way, when he was putting on his show, he got, you know, he enticed into it and he talked to them and he like...
But it's a show.
But it's a show. And she couldn't get that round in her head that it was just pure show.
Yeah.
And it was an hour late he was going on, where I had to sit down and talk to them both. And I always remember that night, because I ran to the toilet, I took all my makeup off, because I didn't want her to see me as a threat. So I'm actually pretty awful. And then they're saying to her, right, okay, just trust me, let me take you, you'll be fine. I said, you can come and stand by the side of the stage and he can sing to you maybe, you know, bring you on, do that. Okay, that's fine. As he's going up the steps to go on stage, there's a woman, a German lady in the front, who suddenly rips her blouse open. She sees this. The timing couldn't have been worse, because she's right at the front, right in front of his microphone. And she's got a pen for him to sign on her breasts and things. So he does. She goes nuts. She takes off her wedding ring.
Oh no.
She throws it into the crowd at the same time when 2 confetti cannons went off.
Right.
So now
the whole timing of it.
The whole time it was nuts. He finished the autograph, but now we're looking for a wedding ring that's on the floor in all this confetti at the front of the stage. Oh. We found it.
Really? Yeah.
We did find it. Then there was an argument, huge argument, when he came off, obviously, before he went on to do his encore. And it was a case of just calming her down and making her realise that this was only a show.
Yeah.
You know, think nothing of it. And he's going home with you tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and just trying to convince her of that. But he managed to fulfil his contract, do every show he had to do, no more, no less, and his second album, and then he went back home.
Right.
Apparently, he still sings his karaoke and things, but
he's no intentions of going any further. But he's
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't necessarily need to be this big star to be happy, do you?
Absolutely. And he had a go at it and realised it wasn't for him. It's not for everybody.
No. What a pressure there.
Gosh, yeah.
A lot of pressure.
I always say that. I mean, I only had to go on stage twice when there was huge audiences at the front and announce down a microphone, and that was bad enough.
Yeah. And
one was to ask somebody with a car number plate to move it, and the other one was to tell somebody to call home.
Right.
You know, and that was bad enough, because I was just like, my heart was pounding, and I mean, the crowd weren't even looking at me, and it was bad. So having to perform every single night, you know, and some of the bigger ones are perfectionists.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. So I admire them from that side, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I sometimes, when people have asked me what is it like for them, I say, well, what's the one thing you hate in doing in your life? What's the one thing that keeps you up the night before you do it? And the majority of the answers have been things like the dentist. You know, I hate the dentist. I hate going to the dentist. But I know once I've been to the dentist, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk out there like, wow, the pain's gone. Feel great. It's done. But the night before, I'm up all night thinking, oh, God, he's going to poke him out. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And I'm hating it. I said, all right, how do you feel if you went through that feeling 9 months out of the year? Every single night.
Yeah.
because to an artist, it's like, it's my show, it's my songs, it's how we perform. What happens if I mess up on something? Yeah. What happens if that doesn't work? What happens if that goes wrong? So you've got all this, and then you've got to like perform to all these people that you don't know and win them over. And then when you've done it, it's like, wow, we made it. It was great. The crowd enjoyed it. Whew.
Yeah.
And then you go to bed, and then you wake up next morning, you're thinking, okay, so what if this goes wrong? What if I do that? What if that happens? What if the other, and it starts again. And it's every single day. So they put themselves through an awful lot. So they've got to be a bit out there to do it.
And you think that's why drugs and alcohol play a big part?
Well, I mean, the drugs things goes all the way back to, the movies. Mm-hmm. Like people like Judy Garland and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Because you have to do what you're told to do.
Mm-hmm. But this is the dark side of it.
It's the dark side of it, because you are not getting any sleep. Mm. Because it's even if you're stacking shelves at Tesco's at night, like come back in the morning, you're not going to get straight into bed.
No.
You're not going to walk out of your office job at 5 o'clock at night, go, it's 5 o'clock now, I better go home to bed. You don't do that. You've got to have time to relax. So you're coming off stage at like 11 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. You're up till 1 o'clock and you still got to eat because you couldn't eat before because you feel sick, so you can't eat then. So most, artists eat afterwards. So then you've got that prolonged effect. And then you have to go to sleep because you realise that in 4 hours' time, you've got to get up. So you use drugs people use them to go to sleep, to relax with.
Yeah.
Different sorts. So you've got that side of it. And then you've got all the hanging around all day. So that calms your nerves. Then suddenly you have to get up and
perform.
Mm. So then you've got other drugs that take on that side. Mm. So there is a lot of that involved.
And the thing is, the industry itself is, like you were saying before about this individual that, is given this money, it's sorted his family's life out. But if he doesn't do as he's told, he's going to have to pay all that back.
Yeah.
So there's massive pressure that an individual's placed under. Now that would say, because we've talked on this show with people regarding the music industry, and I don't know if you've ever heard of Mark Devlin. And Mark Devlin has got 3 books that are called Musical Truths, and he goes very deep into the symbolism and the control aspect of the industry. Very interesting. We've got him after the festival. He's actually going to do a podcast with us as well, which I'm really excited about. But you can see how an individual can easily be controlled to do something they don't want to do.
Yes.
Because one, they've signed the soul in an aspect, even if you're signing a contract.
Sign your soul to rock and roll, and it's...
Yeah. But then it could be other aspects of even blackmail. An individual could be put in a position where they've been, the whole world's going to know about this now if you do not do what we want you to do.
Yeah.
So...
And you find that if an artist is good enough to be as big as the ones that I dealt with, because I didn't do the little ones.
No.
I didn't, like I said before, I didn't sleep in the back of a transit van or somebody's floor.
Yeah,
it was the 5-star hotels and the tour buses and the planes. So I didn't do any of that. And to get to that level, you are part. You're in it then.
Yeah, of course. Big club.
Yeah, and they've got their hooks into you.
Yes.
But you're also enjoying it.
Well, I would imagine.
So it's a mixed emotion thing, So yeah, although I work for the people that got their fingers in you and got hold of you, it was. I also work for people that wouldn't have had it any other way.
I can imagine that a majority are like that, because I would imagine that the drug, the adrenaline of being on stage in front of 10, 20, 30,000 people every night, it's going to be very difficult to let that go anyway, isn't it? Yeah.
And then when you come to having some time off, you get very depressed because that adrenaline isn't there. That the sad thing is that a lot of the really big people that I've worked for have had something that's happened in their life for them to go after the adoration that is given from being on stage.
Yeah.
And they're usually the most successful. Which is sad because they are trying to recreate the love that they never had. So to them, the adoration of a crowd gives them that back.
Yeah.
They're accepted, whereas they were not accepted before.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's also to prove a point, you know, that people always said that I was this, I was that, I never do anything, and now look at me. And that even comes down to some of the crew too. I admit it for myself. Like I said to you before, the guy that, you know, I was told women don't do that. I was even told by the tour manager from Elvis Costello when he asked me if I'd enjoyed it, and the fact when he found out that I got a job from the merchandising company, he said, "This is fantastic. Isn't this what you wanted to do? You know, you're going to love it." I went, "Yeah, but I want more." And he said, what is it you want? I said, "I want your job." And he laughed.
Yeah.
He laughed at me, and I just was like, "Why can't I have your job?"
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And he just went, "You're a girl. You can't."
Well,
Women don't do this.
This is the thing about your book, really, though, Kim, is it? And the experiences you've had is to inspire females that they can be whoever they want to be.
Exactly.
You
like
know?
I said,
and anyone for that. That's
anybody,
male or female,
female, whatever you are, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do whatever you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
You just have to have belief in yourself
And set that intention, because you set your intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, though. You go, right, I'm going to do this. And that's important.
It is. And doesn't matter what anybody says, it's not going to stop me.
No.
But then have the courage to go for it.
Yeah, definitely.
In whatever way. Because, like, people say to me, well, how do you even get into it, the music industry? And they take courses. You can take a course.
Take a course in anything.
Degree. Yeah, you can get a degree on tour management. And I have... See, if this is weird, because I play both sides of this, because I'm invited to actually by universities to go in and talk to people about it, which is great. But then I always said, but you're going to take your degree, you're going to get that in your hand, and you're going to go home. But that phone is never going to call. It's never going to ring.
No, you've got to take action, though, yourself, haven't you?
And then when they say, okay, so how do I do that? I said, well, okay, where's the nearest music bar to you? Or music venue, and go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to give me a tour. Well, you're not going to get one, because I'm sorry, but the big bands are not going to go phone you and go, "Oh, hi Joe. I believe you've just taken a degree for tour management. Would you like to come?" And
it's just not going to happen, is it?
No, it's not.
Personality plays a lot, though.
Yeah.
In that, so
it does.
The fact that you were able to show your personality because you became part of the family at Motorhead.
Yeah, yeah.
So they knew you were going to do a good job because they knew who you were.
Yeah.
But you created that reality, though, as well.
Which is which is, again, is just quite scary, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, but again, it shows what you're capable of. Every individual is capable of creating the reality that they choose to. That's the thing.
Well, like I've said to people, I've actually taken... a lighting designer from a venue that just happened to was there the night that our lighting designer had to go. We didn't have a lighting designer. He knew the board in the club, but he ended up going on a world tour.
Well, there you go.
Because he was just there
Yeah.
at the right time. I've done that with lighting engineers. I've done it with sound engineers. I've even done it with a drummer.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to... But you can't just sit at home. You have to put yourself in the position where... And this drummer was... the drummer we took wasn't... It was a stagehand.
Right.
It was just a stagehand that was there that day, and our drummer had gone out. He'd gone missing. He'd gone.
Right. Well, there you go, you see.
And he just said, I can play drums.
Well, the universe can do that, though, as well, can't it? We had this discussion off camera before. It can just open those doors for you. And then it's down to you if you see that sign and you make your way through the door that's opened or not.
Open the door. You've got to go through it.
You've got to go through it, yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just been in the right place at the right time.
But it will do that.
It will do that.
It will do that, yeah. And then fear can stop you going through that door.
I remember going on the Rush tour. I was scared.
Yeah.
And my friends had picked me up at home. I said goodbye to my mum and my grandparents. And my friends were taking me to Preston Station. And we had a couple of hours to live. So we actually went to the dog track in Preston.
Oh, did you?
Just because we couldn't think of anything else to do.
Yeah.
And we just sat in the cafe there, just like and they took my mind off it completely. And then I got on the train, and the train was getting into London about 9 o'clock at night or something. And it was still daylight at the time because it was in the summer. And when I said goodbye to them, I got on the train and I thought, I can't not get on the train at this point because they're all going to say, what are you doing? So I had to get on the train, even though I didn't want to then.
Yeah.
And all the way down to London, I'm thinking, well, it's okay. There's a train back about 20 minutes after I've got in. I'll just get on the train back and come back.
Yeah.
And everything will be fine. I do not have to do this. And then I got to London and I just thought to myself, but what if I don't do it? What happens if I go back home? And I say to my friends, no, I didn't go. And I look back in 10 years' time when I'm working in a shop thinking, I wonder what would have happened if I'd have done that. So you've got to have the courage to go.
You've got to have that courage, yeah.
To just go do it.
And that, again, it's about, we talk a lot about letting go of stuff. Yeah. Because fear your brain will just like send all these kind of mixed messages and doubts and this, that and the other. And you just take a deep breath, I suppose, in a way, and just, what's the worst that can happen? That's the way I look at life, is I just go, if I do this, what's the worst that can happen? I'm not in a war zone. I'm not in a situation where it's going to hurt me physically or anything like that. So nobody... Even in a straitjacket with Lemmy. He didn't have a machine gun. He wasn't going to take me outside and shoot me. So, what is the worst that could happen? Exactly, yeah. And I love to... people ask me just like, yeah, but what's the worst that could happen? And because you did that, but what amazing experiences you've had. Yeah. Because you did that. Because you could have got on the train on the way back. I could have so easily. And that your life would never have... You would never have had those experiences. That one decision could have changed everything. Yeah. It's mad, eh? And you putting it like that, it's just like, whoa. It is though, but it is. That's how it works. Yeah. It's just, you could literally... it's like a fork in the road, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, I spoke to my mum before she died about writing the book. And then the big one, it wasn't my mum that had the big one, was sitting down with my daughter and saying, look, this is what your mum's done. Because there are some things in there that other people... You might not be proud of me or exactly. Whatever. Yeah. But you need to know it. And when she'd read it, she'd just turn around and just like, Mum, this is amazing. It is. It's cool. I was actually... You're a cool mum. Yeah, I was actually expecting to go like, God, this is embarrassing. No. But no. No. I love one aspect. I remember when she was 11 and I was dropping her off at primary school and my phone went off. So I said goodbye to her. I'm walking back to the car park where all the cars were parked. And I'm on the phone and I waved to a guy and his wife who I knew. So I just did that. And they were obviously waiting to talk to me. So I finished my phone call, put it down, and he went, oh, I suppose that was New York. And I just... how did you know that? Because it was. Right. And he was like, oh, for God's sake, this woman. And just walked off because... It was, he was trying to be funny, thinking like I was just on the, I don't know, to somebody, whatever, just on the phone to somebody trying to sell me something. Yeah. And he's going like, oh, and I bet that was New York. And it was like, yeah, it was actually. And how did you know? So it was, yeah. But I think we spoke about this earlier. Being a tour manager, you never put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. I loved the fact that nobody knew who I was. Yeah. I didn't want them to know that A, I had money on me. B, if they started talking to me, they'd think I could get them in for nothing. Yeah. I had to keep that aura of authority there, which I do mention in the book, is the fact that once I got that, it wasn't the best job I ever had.
Selling T-shirts was the best job I ever had because there was no responsibility and we had so much fun.
Yeah.
But suddenly the fun stopped and I found myself in hotel rooms on days off working and ordering room service when everybody else was out having a good time. So those dynamics, the dynamics of that did change. So
what was the toughest decision you made then with bands, individuals or bands? Was there one that really comes straight into mind? You think that was a tough one, and I did it?
Not so much, because you go to bed at night, and I always used to get up 1 hour before I had to wake everybody else up.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a set routine. So basically, even though I got the presidential suites in some hotels, and I got champagne sent to my room because I brought like X amount of people to this hotel and free whatever I wanted, all I ever wanted was the bed, basically. Mm-hmm. And I remember I'd gone to bed and I used to get up, like say, an hour before I'd wake everybody else up. And I used to do that on purpose so I knew that they were awake. I wasn't relying on some machine to give them a wake-up call and then not have them speak to me.
Yeah.
You know, they'd speak to me, so we'd have a conversation. So, yeah, you were up. And that first hour, I used to get myself together. So I'd take my shower, get ready, do all that. And then I would pack my stuff up, and then I'd go to work.
Yeah.
Which was a different suitcase with all the stuff in. And I'd do everything we had to do for the day and make that okay, and then the job would start. And then I always remember as I shut that door and was going down to reception, I used to think to myself, okay, what's going to happen today? Because there was one thing that my job was never the same.
Yeah.
It was never boring.
Yeah.
And there was always something that would, My biggest standout moment was actually had nothing to do with a gig as such, but it was when Jeanette Napolitano did the American National Anthem.
Oh, right.
And I'm not, I'm not into any of that sort of thing,
mm-hmm.
but it was just like the wow situation, mm-hmm. because suddenly from being this girl that was always told, get on the floor and roll 300 posters, to making my way up to this stage where a limo was sent to us to go to a basketball game,
mm-hmm.
and we were taken in and we were escorted into this room with enough food and drink to sit there all night and do it. And we only had 15 minutes, and just everything we could imagine was there. And then we were escorted onto court and we were allowed to wear our shoes, which is, that alone was something really big. I know it sounds really silly, but nothing was ever allowed on the court. And she sang the national anthem. And the whole of this huge basketball court with thousands of people, we stood up and singing with her. And just the fact that I was the one that had organised that.
Yeah.
Actually brought tears to my eyes that night. And it's weird. It's really weird that's something like that. And it's not even my country, but...
No, but you felt the
but
energy.
I felt the energy
that.
And the emotion that was coming from everybody. Mm-hmm. And I just felt proud of myself that, I even said when I said that, I sat up,
good for you.
That I'd got that together and that had come off, so yeah.
When I first met you, we were... I was doing a business show thing in Preston, wasn't it?
Yes.
So I just launched my web company at the time, and it was me and Lou, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was our first show, and I remember you came over and you were telling me about you were writing a book, and you were going to need help with social media and things like that.
I still hate it. I still can't.
Yeah. But that's how we became friends from then, because we had a common ground, which was music, the love of music and stuff. And we'll go back a few years now. Mm-hmm. Well, now your book's out.
It's out.
When did it get released then?
It got released in May. It actually got released before that. I wrote it myself, mm-hmm. with the help of one of my daughter's friends, actually, who'd just done a degree in writing and stuff. So he helped me out. Yeah. We did it, and we stuck it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Because I thought, again, not realising some of the achievements that I'd done, I put it to the back. I thought, nobody's going to read this. Nobody's going to be interested in it. And I tried 2 publishing houses.
Yeah.
And they both gone... Well, apparently, since then I found out they've both gone, we didn't believe it.
Oh, really?
One actually went...
It's all fiction.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Maybe, because I was actually told by them that I should write in that way, rather than as a memoir, do it as
a story.
As a story.
But it's your life.
But, so, I just put it on Amazon. And it was just done in such a rush because I wanted it to go out on the 23rd of September, which would have been my mum's birthday.
Right.
And after she passed away, that was the whole thing. Let's get it out for that day. So my daughter she put it together and we just put it out there and bang. And I went to a music conference because it was okay. But like I said, I hate social media. I hate promoting myself as such. Yeah. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Because I always feel like I'm not worthy.
Yeah, it's one of those again. You gotta let that go, haven't you? Because you are.
But you see, it doesn't. If it wasn't for that, it's a weird one.
It's hard.
It's
a
hard.
difficult one.
Yeah. So, and I met somebody there, and I just said to them at this music conference, just a conference, like, what do you do? I said, well, I used to do this. I said, and then somebody chirped. One of the people I was with, they chirped on and went, she's just written a book too, and that they were interested. And so I said, you don't fancy being my agent, do you? And he went, me? I'm like, yeah. He said, you're asking me to be... I'm like, yeah. Because I don't know anything about that side of things.
Yeah.
And so he did, and he got me a publishing deal.
Fantastic.
So we then had to rewrite it and rename it. So we put the lipstick first because that stands for me, and the leather second because that stands for the heavy metal people afterwards.
Yeah. Well, you like the red as well.
I've always liked red. You know that.
I know that. Yeah.
And you've even I've written a thing inside, and you'll notice that you invented my autograph. Right from the very beginning, you said it has to be a K with the dots and things, and just.
That's right. I remember doing that logo now. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, that's took me back a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So lipstick and leather. Yeah. Kim Hawes on the road with the world's most notorious rock stars.
Yes.
And absolutely.
Well, it is. It's just the stories that a lot, of the things we got up to.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also look at it too. It's before the music industry got taken over by the accountants. When money was no object.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's somebody. What's the most outrageous thing they ever did? I hired a Learjet to get us from A to B. It's not every day you phone up an airport and go, "Have you got a jet?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what's your most memorable moment in all that journey? What would you?
The most memorable, I guess, was the national anthem thing. Yeah. But there's been so many.
Yeah, I can imagine there's been many.
There's been so many when we've got out of scrapes and gone few, and we've made other things happen, and just, you see, in those, when I first started too, communication was different.
Yeah, of course.
So tour managers, you went out on the road, and you were you were in charge. Mm. And you had places where you had to go, but you'd worked out how to get there, and you had all that. But there was no phoning in or emailing somebody or getting in touch with a manager to ask a question. Mm. So you were in charge of it all. So that was one of the main things I love, which is different than today.
Yeah. Because
a tour manager can't do that. I mean, if a tour manager phoned me up and I was managing a band and just said, look, we've got to collect this award, should we do it in where we can play the song live, mm-hmm. or should we just do a tape and send the tape in? What's the difference? Oh, about £15,000. You stay at home and you do the tape, and that's when we hired the Learjet instead.
Right.
It was beneficial in the end, but again, the accountants are in the way now, so they're always thinking about the money.
Unfortunately, yeah. So what's your next steps now then, Kim? What's your plans?
My plan now is in 2019, I actually got an honorary fellowship to a university. University of Central Lancashire gave me an honorary fellowship.
Fantastic.
For being, I mean, even this I can't get over.
You're very humble.
For being like in the music industry and being a pioneer for women.
You are though.
But I just
You're
can't,
just humble.
it's just weird. Just very weird.
But it's inspiring because, you know, there's going to be plenty of females that will want to experience what you've experienced. And you can just say, well, just do it.
Just do it. And like I said, I started writing the book because I was angry at the fact that women were saying, I've, like I say, been in it for 5 years and I can't get that, I can't do that. And it's like, for goodness sake, we're in 2000s now. You can do anything. If I can do it in 1979, anybody, wherever they are, and 1979 coming from Hesketh Bank, I wasn't even in London, you know, in Acton or wherever around London where I could get involved in. There was nothing around me. So if I can do it from there, anybody can do it from wherever they are, whatever sex or whatever person they decide to be, they can do it.
Definitely.
They just have to believe in themselves and set it in motion themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
And the determination to do it. So I want to pass that on.
Yeah.
And now I've got over the anger. Like I said, it's just inspiring people that if you don't make it as an artist, there are plenty more jobs out there that you can do.
Yeah.
Taking a dentist on tour, for crying out loud. You know, and that was because one of the, I can't say who it was, but one of the people had just had all their teeth done. And they were petrified of them falling out for some reason. They kept dreaming about these teeth were going to fall out.
Paranoid.
Absolutely. So we took a dentist round with us for 3 weeks that just sat there knowing that nothing was going to happen.
And he's thinking, happy days!
Yes, exactly. I'm getting paid for nothing here. So, So there was that. So, yeah, the opportunities within the music industry are still there. So if you don't make it as one thing, you can always make it something else.
Definitely, yeah.
And then I've also gone back to university myself.
Have you, yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
I started off, I've changed my course this year. I was doing counselling, psychotherapy. Then I realised that because of what I've done, I can't sit there and listen to you say how bad your life is and not say anything.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say anything.
And I can't do that.
Yeah.
And it came out near the end that was so obvious that I can't do that.
No, you won't give your opinion.
I need to give my opinion and go, look, well, try this or do this or think about this or do it this way. So I'm going into coaching instead.
I think you'd be an amazing coach.
So that's what I'd like to do.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Because I've just been me. There's no way I'm ever, I should retire in 3 years. Is it 2 years? 2 years time. Yeah. Should get my bus pass, but I'm not going into that.
I can't ever imagine you retiring.
No, I don't want to.
No.
There's too much to live for. There's too much to do.
I think you're right. Yeah, it'd be boring, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
You're not. You've done too much to have a boring.
Well, yeah. So a few of my friends have said, "Why don't you just, get a dog and something and retire to the country and you can do all these different." Do what? I don't want each day to be the same. And yeah, I'd love another dog and things like that. Yeah, but I there's still a lot more out there I want to do.
Good. Well, I look forward to hearing more. There'll be another book in the future.
Another book in the future. Yeah, we'll see.
It's been great. You know what? It's been too long. It's been great to see you.
And you too.
Lipstick and Leather, and I'll put the link in the description so people can buy the book straight from Amazon. Is that?
It's from Amazon. There's large print if people are into those bands and they can't, there's a large print now out there. There's that. There's audio. Get it on Kindle. Yeah, it's out there.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you,
Kim.
No, thank you for having me.